Welcome to Beneath the Grandstand, episode number 24. And, Alex, it's an exciting week. I think there's no better week to subscribe to the show, share it with your friends. Like it. It's a holiday season. It's the season of giving. Give Beneath the Grandstands to your closest friend who's not already listening, so you can have something to talk about on your runs. But in all seriousness, how you doing? Thanksgiving this week. Big time around the country, obviously, for us here in the U.S.
Yeah, I think of Thanksgiving. It's a bummer for the road racing community, right? Because I think I heard one time that a stat was like the most popular day for like major road races is the turkey trots. So bummed that our community cannot share this moment, and bummed for all the race organizers who are feeling the hurt. We're thinking about you guys, and hopefully we are crawling towards the other side of this. So all the love to the race organizers who wish we could be celebrating with today.
Yeah, and I know there's a lot of folks out there that participated in virtual races. I mean, I know a lot of our local communities, they're trying to pop up the virtual option for people to still partake and do it on their own. So hopefully you got to get out there and kind of honor that running tradition for those that normally do it. And we'd love to hear about it. If you do have any fun turkey trot stories, please let us know and let us know how you celebrated this year a little bit differently than maybe you have in years past. But, to kick things off, I brought up the holiday season, and, we just had Black Friday. We have Christmas coming up. There's a lot of reasons to buy gifts. So what better time to talk about product and shoes than right now, as you're trying to think about how I'm going to spend a bunch of money on a pair of shoes for somebody. But we say that we're excited to talk so about some Brooks product today. 2 weeks ago we talked to Des Linden, about where she's at with, obviously her Des Tover event and her career looking ahead to 2021. One of the things we didn't talk about on that episode that we will discuss today is a very, very interesting and a bit crazy story about how she chose the shoe that she was going to wear for the first time ever on the morning of the day she won the Boston Marathon. So it's really, really cool story to hear, Al, and I know we had fun talking to her about it.
Yeah, I mean, you guys will absolutely not believe the cardinal rules that Des Linden broke on her way to a 2018 win. And one of my favorite things I just love the image of Des winning Boston so much. The photo itself, there's so much I want to pull apart from it because, like, it's so Des in that moment. You know what I mean? It's like she's got these like lobster claw gloves on, right? She's wearing a coat, a full-on coat, right? But then there's also this thing that all of us nerds saw, and we saw this blacked out shoe, and everyone was just like, hold on, what is that? I need to know everything about it. And so we dive into that today, guys. And we also live out the story of this product, seeing it come to life through the lens of the people who actually made it. As part of our Flats and the Furious series, we're gonna share some stories from the actual brand side, the Brooks side. So today we're gonna dive in to the Brooks Hyperion Elite 2 story, with first the perspective from the one and only Des Linden, but also Nikhil Jain, who has been with Brooks and been with numerous other brands. He has an awesome perspective on I guess production and manufacturing and design approach in general. And we get to live, literally live the moments of him watching that thing come to life at the Boston Marathon, seeing it go across the line. It's a really sweet story that we're excited to share with you. So in our latest installment of the Flats and the Furious series, here is the Brooks Hyperion Elite 2. Desi, we heard a rumor that you received the prototype of the Hyperion just 4 days before running the Boston Marathon. So we want to know if that A is true, and then what was the decision-making process that gave you the confidence to say, all right, pull trigger, I'm racing in this thing tomorrow?
Yeah. Let's see. Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, race on Monday. So 6 days, I think, was what it was. Pretty close
So
to
rumor
the
was
race.
not
And it's like,
true. There we go.
yes, fuzzy. I'm sure
Six
that like
days.
in a week it'll be like 6 hours before. um, but yeah, I mean, Marathon 101, right? Nothing new on race day. That's what you go with. And these guys show up. Brian came out to Michigan, Traverse City, and flew out and hand delivered them. He had me run around in the street, like, how do they feel? Like, give me some feedback. And that was my first time putting them on. So it was a big decision. You said, like, these major marathons, you have 3 months of training under your belt, and you don't want to make a dumb mistake. But when the weather was insane, it was like, well, what do I have to lose? Like, it's not going to be the shoe's fault if this goes crazy wrong. So that was one thing. In all honesty, I took my regular shoes, that my traditional racing flats to the start, and I had the other ones. I really, people were asking me, I did not know what I was going to wear until probably about 5 minutes before the race, and I was like, "F it, I'm going to wear these." And really, the biggest thing was, like, I've never been handed a product by Brooks and been like, "This is horrible, did not work out. This shoe straight out of the box feels awful." Have never had that happen. So, I'm sitting around with these new shoes and, like, why would they be wrong now? And so it was just a lot of faith. And I've been with the company for so long that it was just simple for me to be able to say, yeah, this is going to work.
If you don't mind, I want to press you on this a little bit, because I know there's confidence, right? You've been with Brooks a long time, but I think what I read was this shoe was built for like 50 to 100 miles. So there's like confidence in knowing like a training shoe will withstand. But when you're handed a shoe that's like, this might only last for like 2 of these runs you're about to do. Was there any point where you're like in the race thinking about it? Or obviously, you made the decision to wear it, but as you went, were you like, are we still good? Is this going to be working as these miles continue to go?
Yeah. I didn't, once I put it on, it was like, I'm good. We didn't know that there was this 50 to 100 mile range. Like, that wasn't, I don't know where they came up with that. Honestly, I don't think that's totally accurate, because I think you can wear those much longer and they feel fine. So I'm like, guys, come on, like, where'd this number come from? So I mean, we didn't have that information at the time. And then once I put it on, it's like, okay, you just got to kind of buy into this. The other thing is, in the past, the T series were super slippery. Like, that bottom of the shoe had always been like, that was our biggest complaint. Like, hey, can we make sure this is a little bit better in the wet conditions? And so I tried that on, and I like went out. First thing, I got out to the start, and I like tested the paint, and it was fine. I'm like, oh, these will be good. Tested a manhole cover, a little bit more slick. So there's actually a point where you kind of cross the line for the tee. And I'm like, you can look in the video, I'm like very gingerly going over it. I'm like, do not fall now. So that was the biggest concern. Other than that, it was like, okay, this is, at least they're not slippery on the wet asphalt.
Nice.
Des, you mentioned, that's a specific insight about the kind of slippery, bottoms, but is there anything like unique to you that you are always like, that's a common Desiree Linden product feedback that Brooks is going to get? Like, what would they say that you are always harping them on?
I like to think I'm low maintenance. I'm probably not very useful to a product team, because I'm like, oh, this is really good, and then they'll send me the next one. I'm like, oh, this is way better. But I'm also like, I compare myself to Ryan Linden, and he's on their product, the wear testing team, so he'll get stuff on occasion. He'll be like, I don't know, man, it just feels blown out. Like, oh, the uppers, like, and he'll just have all these little things. I'm like, how do you, like, I just put it on and forget about it. So I don't know. I think my feet are just very durable. I wish I could give them more feedback, but I'm like, this is great. Oh, this is even better. Maybe make it the shoelaces a little shorter.
Well, I guess regardless of level of feedback that you give to them, when you go through that process, right? And I have to assume they involve you pretty heavily. What is your favorite part of the process of when these new products, something like the Hyperion, comes out.
Yeah, I mean, it is. I kind of joke about myself, but it is like giving that like insight of what is important to us. Like, hey, dude, these are kind of slick on wet paint and things that people wouldn't think about. So it's just kind of being involved in it in a small way. I think sometimes like giving the insight of what the pro needs is helpful, but ultimately it's like this shoe's got to accommodate a big range of people. So to be just a tiny piece in what the final product is really cool. And again, I'm not that picky, so I just whatever they come up with, I'm like, this is great. I'm glad that I got to like sit in the room and watch it happen, but I don't feel like I really contributed all that much, to be honest.
I just put it on and win races. That's it.
They make it easy. Like, here's another great one.
Des, can you give us an idea of, spring of 18, what was your, I guess, relationship or knowledge of, I guess, this innovation change in footwear? Where did you maybe hear or see, the impacts of a carbon plated shoe? And I guess, what were your instincts as far as, when you thought Brooks would be able to get their hands on it? And I guess, did you feel any sort of, I guess, anxiety about, innovation being on the same kind of plane as far as all brands and having the same advantage as other athletes on the same day? Where was your headspace in relationship to that conversation, spring of 18?
Yeah, I mean, I would take you back a little bit and say is spring of 17 where I really got a feel for something different happening in the marathon. And we go, like, I saw this really unpredictable event, all this crazy stuff happens. But you could always look at that last 10K and the people who went out too hard, they would, take a dive, and people in unknown territory, that's where they would struggle. And all of a sudden it changed. And it was literally in Boston 2017. Like, at least one person's coming back. I know it. And it never happened. And in fact, they stretched it out. And I'm looking at my watch like, I'm just having a crap race. Like, this is what's going on. And I look at my watch, it's like, nope, you're holding together just fine. And then you started seeing it in London. And then, you got to the fall and it was Berlin. People just were ripping these fast times and looking really fresh that last 10K. And that was kind of eye-opening to me. And the only thing that had changed was the shoe technology. And at that point, it kind of became very public with the sub 2 event happening. So that was all in my mind heading into 18. And, I had kind of voiced that and concern and talked about it. I was with the Hansons then, and Kevin's just like a diehard, like, there's no way this technology is real. This isn't a thing. You're just, like, you're letting it get in your head. And then I think they added on Dathan, and it was like, he brought the shoes and was like, here it is. And then it was like, oh, actually, this is real. We needed to get going. And I think he actually kind of put the pressure on Brooks, like, we're at a disadvantage now. Let's catch up. Let's get going. But the exciting thing being handed that pair of shoes was I don't think Brooks and Nikhil and the team over there said, okay, let's try to make something that's as good as these guys. It was, if we get in this game, we're going to try to be the best. So, they weren't trying to match it. It was like, let's make a better shoe. And that was kind of the attitude that they always had. So when they handed me a product, it was like, okay, we're not at a disadvantage. We're just doing our own thing at our own pace, and it might be better.
I think it's that insight about the last 10K of the race, I think, is really interesting. In some of our other conversations with athletes and brands, it's kind of been a philosophical approach or a belief about what the most direct impact of carbon plated shoes really is. Is it that it's making you faster in the moment? Or is it the fact that it's lessening the overall impact? Because lessening the overall impact might, one, keep you fresher towards the end of a 10K, but it also allows you to stack really hard workouts on top of each other. What is your belief? Is it in the moment, this is making me a more efficient runner, or the compound effect?
I mean, I guess it's the beauty is it's both, right? Like that plate is in a design where you go, this is the most efficient path. And your foot can't deviate off of that because the plate is pushing you off that point every time. And that, that's what the plate does. And within that, like around that is this foam that you go, yeah, and it's a little bit more cushioned and you feel fresher. But you're the most efficient you're going to be on that plate. And I don't know, maybe that keeps you fresher. I honestly, it's an interesting discussion. I'm not the person who knows the answer because I don't know the engineering of it all.
Do you feel like it's the way if it makes you more efficient, do you feel like it's affected the way your stride pattern is on other runs when you maybe don't wear a carbon plated shoe or more traditional foam sort of shoe? Has it affected, I guess, kind of your day-to-day runs?
Me personally, I wouldn't think so. I think I don't wear it enough in training or in training runs and workouts and things like that. It's almost like it's like a race uniform. Like I'll wear it once to make sure it's good and like kind of callus the body just a little bit, but it's kind of reserved for race day, which could be good or bad. I don't know. Like maybe I need to, work on efficiency and running economy, and that's like the shoe that you do it in. And I think it's what's so fascinating about it, there's all these different ways to use it, and it's like figuring out what's the most effective and efficient for you. Like, is this a form thing that I'm going to get better here, or am I going to detrain myself to a degree because I've had this little aid, and then you go into the race and it's the same thing, and you don't get that boost. So there's all these things to balance out and figure out.
I want to ask a quick question on confidence here, right? Because you're citing this 2017 moment at the end of the race, waiting for people to come back, and you ran 2:25 in that race, so you can see that. I understand where that confusion might be, where you're like, oh, someone's definitely going to come back, and you're like, oh no, they're actually not. 2018 rolls around, you win, you're in the shoe. Is there a relief and kind of a heightened confidence knowing, hey, I now have the product that can help me compete at that level? Is that one thing? And now when you go into races moving forward, do you have that confidence? And is it kind of like a non thought at this point you don't have to worry about anymore?
I think if we had just stopped and that was the last of the shoe updates, then I would say, yeah, for sure. But everyone's raising the bar every time out, right? It's going to be a continual thing. I will say, I mean, it didn't run fast in Boston, so that there's that, but I did get in those late miles and was like, no, I got the shoes that make me feel okay these last 6 miles. I know I'm slowing down. I'm sure people are catching me, but like I know these shoes are going to add something to this moment. So that was definitely there, and they obviously held up fine. And then again, we went back to the lab, and it was like, well, yeah, let's tweak them, let's make them better. So there's always that, like, okay, this is going to get progressively better. So I do think that confidence has been there since then.
Oh. Des, I'd like to ground you in kind of your particularities of, you said you're not very particular and you don't give a ton of product feedback, but I think, we all want to know, and I think it's interesting to know kind of the elite athletes kind of toolkit when they look at their week or month of training. Ground us in, if Brooks said tomorrow, hey, we're only going to send you one model of footwear, and for the next 10 years, no matter how far you run, how fast you run, no matter the terrain, you only get one model. What is the model that you ask for? Was there one specific year, one specific colorway, one specific execution that you'd be like, you know what, I'll do a dead stock of 200 pairs of those and I'm good to go?
That's such a big question. Dang. I you know what? I would go with Hyperion Tempo, which is like the new guy on the block. And if I were never racing again, it would be the Glycerin, like easy, right? But that's kind of a big beefy shoe. I think the Tempo is durable enough to do a ton of miles in. It has some cushion to it, but it can also go fast. And if I have an endless stock, I don't have to wait until they're totally beat up before I switch in a new pair, right? So I could go through those very quickly. It's a great shoe.
I'm curious to, as you look ahead, what, I guess, what are you most excited about with, kind of the innovations that you've seen from Brooks and that you've heard that are coming down the pipeline, to kind of keep you excited about, about what you're doing as you're competing and training?
Yeah, I think it'll be really interesting. I think this like whole efficiency, it's the 4% is where we started, right? And we're not going to get to a point where you can have a foam or a product where you put in energy and get more out. So there's a ceiling, but how close can we get to that, and how much, more crazy, unique ideas are going to be thrown out there? I think that that's pretty exciting. It's an interesting mix for the sport. Like the times, are they exciting anymore or not? But we're watching these barriers fall and these records be set, and that's pretty fun too. So I think Brooks will keep turning out great product, and hopefully we can get some people running those really fast times with just great equipment. And I think that's the era we're in right now. So you have to embrace it. And I think just the changes are going to be incredible. Like if someone handed me the Hyperion Elite to even just one Olympic cycle ago and said, "Here's your racing shoe," I would have laughed. I'd been like, "What is that? There's no way I'm running in a thick soled. Like, what is this thing?" But here we are, and everyone's going like, "Get me one that's better, stack it higher," or whatever it may be. And so it'll just be fun to watch what direction people go, and the creative people who are thinking outside the box and figuring out how to close that seal, like get closer to that ceiling of energy return, are just going to get further ahead.
Very cool. And so, I mean, speaking of creative people, we're going to talk to one of them in a moment from the Brooks team, Nikhil. So we appreciate you giving us your insight on product, the deep feedback loop that you provide to the team when they need it most. So it's good to hear. Excited to see
Sparkles
what they.
in the laces, guys. Deep
excited
feedback.
excited to see what they continue to come out with. So thanks for the insight on that.
We're going to dive a little bit into the product insight side of things here when we talk about the Hyperion and the Brooks side of the house. We're lucky to be joined by Nikhil. And Nikhil, we can give a little insight into, in your intro, we gave a little insight into what projects and other companies you've worked on. But I think I'm curious, as a general creative person, what are you inspired by outside of running these days? We can talk about footwear launches all day, but maybe tell us, what sort of things, that you kind of been getting obsessed with, or give you some sort of inspiration outside of our little running circle.
Wow. I mean, I think for me, well, I guess a couple of things. One is, as I was talking about before we started, I just adopted a 1-year-old Alaskan Husky, and I've wanted a dog for, I can't even remember how long. And I think part of the reason why I love Huskies, because they kind of resemble wolves, and I love wolves. And I mean, I love running as well. And I felt like, what better way to be able to actually run more? And I'm actually running more than I've ever run in my life already. And it's only been like 3.5 weeks. So I think I was kind of looking for a little bit of, motivation as well, in the world that we're living in. And then outside of, running with my dog, I think I just enjoy cooking so much. It's actually relaxing, which I would never have thought it would have been. And, I'm kind of experimenting with, different types of food and spices. And I'm actually not as creative as I wish I was, but I'm definitely kind of stepping out of my comfort zone when it comes to cooking. And I think, to kind of pull it back to Brooks, that's something that I'm so proud of. When I talk about, working with the product and creative teams at Brooks, is we really push ourselves to think differently, step out of our comfort zone, and especially living in the world of innovation. It's something that you have to do on a daily basis. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to push the limits. You're not going to almost, go to, places where you think things might not be possible, the unknown. And so I hope that kind of gives you an idea of maybe, some of the things that are motivating me and inspiring me today.
You teased out the product team a little bit over at Brooks, and I think when we look at your title, it says that you're assigned to the blue line. Can you give us a little bit of an idea of what that means for Brooks? What kind of products fall under that umbrella, and why you might be structured that way?
Yeah, great question. So Blue Line is part of our innovation engine. So it's part of our footwear innovation division. But specifically, Blue Line is what we call our innovation accelerator. So, as you can imagine, with new technologies, everything that from concept to market is more than 2, 3, sometimes it's like 5, 6 years out from when we conceptualize something to truly bringing it to market. And then on the inline side, everything is around, like that 20 to 24 month life cycle, development cycle. And so, one of the things that we're noticing is runners today more and more want newness, freshness. They have a bigger appetite for new type of product experiences. And so we needed to be able to react faster to runners and their preferences. And that's kind of what brought Blue Line to life. And so we're really kind of pushing the boundaries in terms of innovation, leveraging some of the emerging technologies within our broader innovation group, but then taking them and expediting them to market so that runners can experience them and we can learn from those products quickly, react to consumers' preferences, and then either provide an update through Blue Line itself, or our learnings get delivered to a bigger inline product team, and they are the ones that can then take the learnings. And in some cases, it's what not to do as well. So that's kind of what Blue Line stands for. We get to work with all our elite athletes on the road, the track, as well as the trails. And then I think I think it's just, it's a means to reacting quickly, learning quickly, and then still pushing the boundaries to bring, as cutting edge technology to market as quickly as possible. And that the Hyperion Elite was the first shoe that we brought through. It actually took us longer than we would wanted to, even though Des won the Boston Marathon in the first round prototype. The Hyperion Tempo is an amazing shoe. I think so many people have absolutely loved running in it. And then we kind of followed that up quickly with a trail shoe called the Catamount. I'm not sure if you guys have heard about that or run in that shoe. And that was just a super fun experience where we got to spend some time at UTMB as well. And Brian Bach, who's the senior developer on the shoe, he actually ran TDS, which is one of the most technical races probably in the world, in that shoe. And Ross, the designer, and I crewed for him. So yeah, it was just an amazing experience. And then the Hyperion Elite 2 was just like the shoe that we're going to talk about today. We quickly followed up with that shoe.
So I want to ask about the Hyperion here because, one, I'm curious to what the name means. But, you just referenced Des winning Boston in the first prototype, as someone part of that process to create a new product. When the first go round is a champ, like a win at a world marathon major, what's that what's that like for the team, and what was it like for Brooks?
Yeah, I mean, it was an amazing experience. I think I'm kind of pinching myself in terms of how everything kind of came together. We had started working on that shoe sometime in, I think, August of 2017, and we only got our first round prototype somewhere in January, February, and the initial testing was positive, and we knew Boston was around the corner, and then we had to build sizes for Des and Shadrach and literally hand deliver them 4 days prior to the race, not knowing if they were going to run in it. Des didn't know and hadn't decided till the morning of the race. And so we see her at the starting line. We're like, she's in the shoes. Oh my God, she's in the shoes. And then when she actually took the lead, I think a few of us were just like dying inside because that was the longest the shoe had gone ever. Like it had not gone past 13.1 miles till that day. And so, we did build it to be, like this tip of the spear, built for elite athletes. We were very transparent and honest, saying that, you're going to get the maximum from the shoe up to 50 to 100 miles. And so we built that shoe for race day. And so it was an amazing experience. Obviously, huge kudos to Des and Shadrach. They were the ones that, braved the conditions and executed at such a high level to kind of win and come third, respectively. It was a great, great moment for the athletes, great moment for the brand as well.
I'm thinking a little bit about like Zion Williamson when his shoe blew out, and that blows up, and think back to other times this has happened for companies. As someone on the product side, when you're describing Des getting it 4 days before, making the decision the morning of, watching it pass its furthest round of testing ever at 13.1 miles, like on the product side, what are you thinking? Are you like, I hope XYZ doesn't happen? Are you thinking we know it's going to last? Like what are the thoughts going through your mind? No, and especially knowing this is like being broadcast worldwide, right?
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's one of the biggest stages ever. Like, I think, there are two things. One is, honestly, we're like I said, we were dying inside because we were like, okay, just like now the shoe better just hold up, right? Not that we were truly worried, but like you said, you do kind of like, what if this happens? What if that happens? And so you're like, okay, Des is in the lead, and you just don't want the shoe to be a reason why, something happens. And but I will say that, at Brooks, our standards of fit, feel, and ride are just so fundamentally strong. And that's not just at the, in the US with the product team, the development team. It's across the board. It's all over, whether it's an Asia development team, our quality control team, commercialization. And so we're just very confident from that perspective. And then I think, I think you should ask Des that question as well, because, the fact that our product teams give us so much confidence allows us to give our athletes, product in these initial prototype phases for these large events. And we can confidently say, like, go ahead, toe the line, execute at the highest level. And then inside, we are the ones that are just like, okay, keep it together.
I'd love to know, now that we're on the second kind of iteration of at least the Hyperion Elite, and you've been able to kind of see the I guess the carbon plated landscape across our sport, and you've even worked at some of the other brands. I'd love to know, like, let's say you're working at a specialty store, and somebody walks in and says, "I want a carbon plated shoe," and they have the array, and they're looking at the wall, right, of racing flats. What is the competitive advantage of the Hyperion? What is the selling point and differentiator of the Brooks version of a carbon plated racing flat?
He's got it. Look at this.
I got the shoe with me. I had to be a little prepared. Yeah, I mean, that's an amazing question, Alex. Thank you so much. I think, look, it's not just this shoe, the second version, but even the first version. We knew that we wanted to bring a solution to the market, but we always look at it from a Brooks point of view, right? And we call it Run Signature, which is our core philosophy, and it's all about each individual runner having their own preferred natural motion path, and that's what drives us when we kind of work on each and every shoe, including marathon racing shoes, whether they have a carbon fiber plate or not. And so we built both the first and the second version to allow runners to execute at the highest level even at later stages in a marathon, when fatigue sets in, when you know your form starts breaking down. And we really did that by kind of building a wider base. So of a lot of the shoes that are out there, I think the Hyperion Elite differentiates itself because it is a wider heel and it is a wider midfoot as well. But it's still super lightweight at 7.6 ounces. It has a carbon fiber plate. It has a nitrogen infused DNA flash midsole. And just the overall stack heights are enough to give you that soft cushioning and protection as well. And so I think we're at 29 millimeters of stack height in the forefoot, 37 in the heel, so an 8 millimeter offset. And that broad base really allows you to stay supported even at mile 18, 20, 22, when fatigue is going to set in, and you're going to need a little bit of support and help. And that's where the Hyperion Elite 1 and the 2 really differentiate themselves from the competition.
Nikhil, what would playing devil's advocate on that, what would maybe somebody who's a naysayer of a wider base, of a wider, heel and midsole, like what would somebody challenge would be a negative effect of that?
As in someone who might not want a wider base?
Yeah, or maybe somebody from another brand. Let's say there's another person on the specialty floor, and they think that there's another shoe that it has an advantage. I guess what would be the knock on, like, why aren't other brands as wide as Brooks? I guess is the real question. If it's such an advantage, why aren't other brands going wide like Brooks is?
Yeah, I mean, I think you'd have to ask the other brands what their philosophy is. I think the way we're looking at it is we want runners to be able to execute at the highest level, win races, get their personal bests, but at the same time, we also understand that your biomechanics are important, training in the shoe and executing in the shoe is important, and so we want to make sure that you can continue to run, execute at the highest level, and hopefully not get injured or not not compromise yourself during the race, pre and even post race. I think the other thing that really helps differentiate ourselves from the competition is the fit. Brooks, really, we pride ourselves on the fit of all our shoes, and the fit on this shoe is also top notch. And so I think the two things work really well together. I mean, I guess the last thing I would say is, like, not every carbon fiber plated shoe, or not every shoe is going to work equally well for each and every individual. So, I mean, I think whether it's an SRA or otherwise, having that array of shoes is still really important, because I might love running in the Hyperion Elite too, but but Alex, you might, for whatever reason, it might not work for you. And so I think it's important that, again, we understand that different shoes work for different people, and that's why having options is still really, really important.
Yeah, you talk about options and kind of the Brooks signature, and I guess I'd love to know how you see this innovation, and I guess this kind of tip of the spear sort of blue line innovation affecting the rest of the range. I think when people think of Brooks, they think of that run happy mantra is like just so strong, and I think just like something you guys have championed so well. But how do you balance the kind of, I guess, the approachability that Brooks has established with that kind of core consumer, with a super elite $250 shoe? How do you kind of balance I guess where you're putting energies across your full range of footwear?
Right. Yeah. Great question. So I think I would say, first and foremost, we are really building our shoes for all runners, right? We want anyone who runs to be able to experience Brooks's Fit, Feel, and Ride, experience Run Happy, you know, run more, you know, make a difference in their lives, inspire them, and that applies for this shoe as well. Even though we call it the Hyperion Elite and it's $250, and we're working really closely with Des and Shadrach. We still are testing these shoes with, you know, our wear test base, right? So wear testers who, you know, would test, you know, a Ghost, or wear testers who would test even a faster shoe like the original Hyperion. And so we're still making sure that, you know, this shoe is and I think that's what working with the athletes gives us, that extra confidence. If it works for the athletes, it's going to also work for, you know, what we call like someone who's running 50 plus miles a week, someone who is doing road races on a regular basis, maybe, you know, running to qualify for the marathon trials as well. And so we really are looking at taking not only building these kind of tip of the spear shoes so that they're still runnable with, you know, everyday runners. Like I can run in the shoe, and I absolutely love running in the shoe. But I don't know if I'm going to run a marathon in this shoe, because I've never run a marathon. I mean, I'm just trying to tell you like where I stand relative to, you know, like a lot of marathon runners. But I mean, I feel like I shouldn't be, like, I should still have access to a shoe like this because it provides such an enjoyable running experience. And I think that's what we're trying to do, you know, with some of these tip of the spear shoes. So I don't know. I hope that answers your question. And then I think the second part is, look, we are. I think the reason why Blue Line exists is because we can build some of these, you know, cutting edge technologies, expedite technologies, build these shoes, and then learn from them quickly. If we hadn't embarked on the original Hyperion Elite, we wouldn't have been working closely with our athletes, and we wouldn't have learned from the athletes that they needed a training shoe which was lightweight, cushioned, and responsive, like had that trifecta of those three attributes. And that's from that DNA Flash was born, and the Hyperion Tempo came to life. And because of the Hyperion Tempo, we were able to bring DNA Flash into the second version of the Hyperion Elite. And so, you know, we're not only learning within Blue Line, but now, you know, you're going to see DNA Flash and nitrogen infused foams show up in other parts of our line. So that's just an example of how, you know, Blue Line and our innovation team are really truly there to be able to take the learnings and bring those learnings to our everyday running shoes so that everyone can, you know, enjoy running in Brooks product and enjoy, you know, some of these great technologies that we are working on and bringing to life.
Nikhil, on you know, just thinking about a new shoe, I'm thinking about the use of an athlete as a marketing tool, right? And so an athlete like Des, who's at kind of the highest level, known worldwide, excels at the highest, you know, at the biggest stage, wearing a new product like she did when she won Boston. How does that? I mean, I guess I should ask: did you guys see the adoption of that shoe through sales and whatever it might be have a different effect than maybe you have with other product launches, because people got to see it in action and know that, hey, regardless of price point, this thing is the real deal?
Yeah, I mean, I think there are two sides to that. 100%, there are a lot of, you know, runners and people who follow Des, and, you know, she inspires so many people. She motivates so many people. And I think there probably were, you know, a lot of people that saw the shoe that she obviously won the Boston Marathon in. And so there was a lot of interest on our social media websites. And that first couple of days of when we had the shoe on sale, we sold out. And it was, again, a small number of pairs, but the fact that we sold out showed that there was, a lot of appetite, and there were people who were very excited about the shoe. We're still building, some of these Blue Line product in like small batches. It's not, like tens and thousands or hundreds of thousands of pairs by any means. So I think that's still part of our strategy, where we are building, a certain number of pairs, and we're kind of releasing them in the market. And then, at some point we'll either have an update or a color drop, but it's not the same as, our inline product, where it's, it's a regular flow of product, and there's at once business, etc. And so I think that, yes, there was definitely some wins in terms of us selling through some of this product, the Hyperion Elite 1, and we're doing well with sell through on the Hyperion Elite 2 in a lot of different channels. Yet at the same time, I just want to be transparent, saying it's not to the extent of, a lot of our other shoes in our line. I do think the athletes bring a lot of credence to the product, because, especially when they perform at such a high level, and they have that visibility, there are a lot of runners who it gives the other runners confidence, and especially, a lot of runners who are running to race, running to get their personal bests, and they are inspired by or aspire to be some of these elite athletes. They follow them closely. They pay attention to what they're buying or what they're using, and then what they're kind of what they're saying about the product.
So Nikhil, I'd love to kind of zoom back out and give you a runway as a creative a little bit again. We've talked a lot about footwear innovation, and we've talked a lot about carbon plates, but I want to know what are you keeping your eye on as far as next innovations in running, whether it be, uppers on footwear, whether it be apparel, whether it be nutrition. What sort of things are you keeping a pulse on as far as innovations in our sport?
I think right now, there are a number of things happening, and I think, we're very, very excited about the future. One of the things, and I kind of alluded to it before, is that the types of foams that we have now access to, and the proprietary foams, the processes. I talked about nitrogen infusion. That has really been a huge unlock for us at Brooks, and what it means to the runner. And so that's allowed us to really take the next step in terms of pushing the boundaries, and what that might look like, and what that might mean in terms of midsole foams and different parts of the midsole, and the experiences within these different parts of the midsole. So I think the ability to nitrogen infuse some of our proprietary foams, and then what that ends up meaning to the consumer, you're going to see some really cool stuff from us in the next few years based on that.
Very cool. Looking forward to all of it.
Me too. Yeah. I can't wait.
Well,
the crazy thing is, like, you build a shoe, you have it, you actually run in the shoe, and then you're like, I wish I could just release it in the market next week. And obviously we have to go through the whole process of commercialization and quality and production, and you're just like, come on, I wish I could just get it out there.
Nikhil, we'll send you our address. We'll make it easy for you. It's all good.
Good one.
Good stuff. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Man, Ryan, I can't imagine what it was like to get the word that on the day of Boston, to see the weather and being in Seattle and Brooks HQ and being like, you guys, she's gonna do it. She's gonna wear them. I mean, we had just seen Kipchoge, right, in those prototypes, the midsole literally flapped out of the back of his heels. Like, I would be horrified. It would be so nerve-wracking to know that she pulled trigger and is actually running the Boston Marathon in the shoes that literally just came off the manufacturing line.
And don't forget that, like, if there's a lot of that team in Seattle, then they're 3 hours behind, right? So they're getting a text at like 4 a.m. Hey, dude, Des is gonna wear it, right? Like it's actually gonna happen, right? So it's, that whole story is, it's a cool one when you're talking about like a product development and a launch of a new product, and seeing, is this product going to withstand, the elite kind of rigors of elite running, right? And Des wears it on the biggest stage, best athlete on the biggest stage, and it's a success. I mean, that's like, for people that put that together and launch that shoe, that's got to be kind of a storybook moment for them. And obviously for Des as well, right? And winning that race, and it's just such a cool story. And it wasn't 4 days. Everyone should know it was 6 days. There was so much more advanced time than we really thought. So, but yeah, just super cool.
Yeah, and I mean, I can't imagine that moment like in any other product, right? Like think if you were like Formula One racing, or like, even bikes, right? If you're like, hey, we have this new tire and that we're gonna put on this bike, and they're gonna run it in the Tour de France tomorrow. Like, are you sure? Like, we haven't really tested it, and it looks terrible. Like, it's gonna rain a lot tomorrow. Are we sure we want to do this? So it's the ultimate kind of I guess show for anybody in product innovation. And I guess at some point you gotta just you gotta let go of your baby and put it to the test.
Yeah. And when you think about the launch of the shoe and the athlete involvement in it, like I love Dez's response to giving product insight. I have to say it's kind of in line with what I thought it would be. She's just like, yeah, I mean, they give me good shoes. I like them, And so it's like kind of funny, right? But at the same time, I feel like we, for those listening who have been involved in the running community, you probably have been a wear tester for somebody, or know someone who's been a wear tester, and you've either yourself or know your friend that's been like super nerded out on like giving the most critical detail you can, partly because you think your opinion's right, but maybe also because you want to help them out, right? But I'm looking at I'm thinking of the product guys that are just reading these like hundreds of reviews of these critical reviews from people that they'll never meet, maybe in person, and then they get Des walking into the room and they're like, oh God, what is she gonna say? And she's just like, yeah, it's great. Like it's got to be a great balance for the people that actually have to go through actual reviews of their product.
Totally. I mean, because look at the other end of the spectrum on this, right? Because I've seen it while I was at Adidas. Like there would be one little piece of feedback that for some reason cuts through, and everybody globs onto it, and you scramble to make scramble to make an adjustment to it. Like, oh, I heard that the newest boost, it rubs your heel wrong, and you're just scrambling, right? But like, or you could just trust your creative team, who are a bunch of talented rock star professionals who've worked on footwear their entire lives, and you could just trust these two completely elite athletes, right? And it's like it's a weird kind of balance you need to walk the line. There is like listening to the messages, over testing, right? Because like if for feedback, people will find feedback for you, right? They'll find something wrong with it, or just trusting your instincts. And like, it was interesting to hear Nikhil say, the process and the trust that they have in that, and I guess in that kind of into those like core Brooks like fit, feel, and ride sort of principles. And I also thought it was interesting when he we started talking about what's the differentiator between their carbon plated shoe and others. It's still, when we talk about Brooks and the Run Happy, and like Brooks is such a specialty beast. The reason they are have been so successful is because their shoes are approachable to everybody. But how do you make it approachable when they're talking about a $250 racing shoe? Well, they still built it with a wider base. And I think the lens feels like, okay, we can still make super elite product, but we want to deliver it in the most approachable vessel possible. And that feels very Run Happy to me. Like that feels still pretty Brooksish to me, because who's to say that a bigger person who might not run as fast as Des Linden doesn't want this badass $250 carbon plated shoe. Like, who's to say they don't deserve the chance to buy that?
No. Yeah, and I'd love to get your opinion on this, just your experience in the footwear industry. Like, I appreciated his comment, and I was a little confused by it at first about how they don't make a lot of these shoes comparatively to other models. And it just, the blue line, the specific, line with which Nikhil works, it really, for me, it pointed to the fact that it was all about innovation, right? And really kind of pushing the bounds of the technology and creating a shoe that it's not necessarily for this, the SKU and the price point and driving the volume of sales. It's about like making a badass product and getting it to the people that want it and letting them experience it. Right. And that's interesting because that's not what you hear a lot with product. It's about volume and margins and how many, getting it to the most feet you can.
100%. And this is something that we talk about in, specialty elite, footwear. You can challenge the margins all day, right? And you can challenge the justifications of it all day. But at the end of the day, if you have to look at it through a lens of, this is the R&D arm. We are doing this to explore. This is a vessel of innovation for us, right? Like, we have these creative ideas. We want to explore these things. They just happen to come to life in really fast running shoes, and that's awesome because we're on the receiving end of that. And so I think that's something that we tried to articulate a lot, especially when I was at Adidas, is like, no, we're not looking to make money on this. If that's how you are if that's the lens you're going to look at this through, like, we're going to have an argument here, because this should be looked at through as an opportunity for R&D, and eventually we are going to be able to gift this innovation and this technology to everyone, because we need to make sure that, again, like, technology is approachable, and we're not trying to be elitist. We're not trying to be have this kind of hyperbolic view on the world. We're trying to elevate product in general, and just happens to be carbon plated racing shoes are the vessel right now. So how we do that moving forward, what the next sort of innovation will be, is something that I bet we start hearing about. Maybe especially as we head into this 2021 Olympic year, and you're going to hear about it beneath the grandstand. Thanks for joining us, guys.